who is calling in from New York. Kevin, what's going on?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, you guys.
Absolutely. How can we help you today?
Hey, well, I wanted to talk about the Bible.
Okay.
And how I can try to express the validity of the Bible to you guys. And the curious relationship between 2 Peter and Jude and the New Testament specifically.
Okay, you said express the validity of the Bible, so you're saying the whole book, all 66 books.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I can give you an idea of how it's valid. Because by explaining this to you, you can then use the same tools to try to work this out for yourself.
I mean, I think I could give you an idea of how it's valid too, but I guess I'm more interested in how you can demonstrate the truth of the claims made in the Bible.
All right. Well, the subject I called in. Well, I wanted to tell you guys the curious relationship between 2 Peter and Jude in the New Testament. Now, biblical scholars have long noted that there's a lot of similarities between 2 Peter and Jude. In fact, there are only 7 verses in the entire letters that don't have a noticeable parallel. I guess you could then say that 72% of the verses in the letter of Jude have been incorporated in the structure of 2 Peter. Now,
okay.
Well, yeah.
I'm listening. I'm trying to see what the point is, but yeah, you obviously have more to say, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, with that known, that there's very much a lot of similarities between the two. The two can then be combined into a third letter, which is more comprehensive. And that puts up an argument for their inspiration.
Their inspiration? What do you mean?
Yes. Their inspiration from God. Now, when you...
Wait, hold on. I don't understand. You have to explain this to me. So 2 Peter does make references to the Epistle of Jude. That much is true. But how does putting them together make them the divine inspiration? I mean, first of all, if we're going to get into this, right, the vast majority of biblical scholars do not attribute 2 Peter to Peter at all. Did you know that?
Did I know they didn't attribute it at all? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Like out of all the books of the New Testament of the letters, like 2 Peter is one of draws some of the most consensus amongst biblical scholars of not having original authorship from Peter. There's other New Testament books as well that are, supposedly written by Paul, some of which we can confirm are definitely not. Some are more up to debate, but 2 Peter is one of those ones where, yeah, most people agree who study the issue say it was not written by Peter, mainly because of the approximation of its date, which was long past the life of when Peter would have actually lived.
Well, I see where you're going with this, but it's also an important fact to take into consideration that I got this idea from Matt Del Honte without even talking to him, in which he says that a lot of these texts borrow from one another. And
that much is true.
But yes, but the issue is that even amongst the denominations out there, there isn't a there's a consensus to put the apocryphal books in the background, which is a mistake.
Okay, I have no idea what that has to do with what we're talking about.
Well, even just like I explained to you that 2 Peter and Jude have similarities to them. Well, the Book of Jude itself borrows from apocryphal books.
Sure.
Two, in fact.
The Book of Enoch, in particular.
Not only the Book of Enoch, but an apocryphal text that we no longer have, which belongs to the New Testament, which is known as the Assumption of Moses.
Yes. So, if anything, doesn't that kind of demonstrate the unvalidity of the Bible? The fact that the Bible itself or texts within it are borrowing from apocryphal texts, that is, texts that aren't deemed canon by the church?
No, because it is also demonstrated in the Bible that the church is going to be a hindrance to the truth, and then by doing so, fulfilling prophecy.
Okay, I don't want to be that guy, but we are kind of getting towards the end of the show, and I do have another caller. I guess I'm really struggling to kind of see what your point in all this. So far, you've told me that they're making references to apocryphal texts and to other texts in the New Testament in 2 Peter and in Jude, which is true. I grant you all of that, but I have yet to see what that means for the divine inspiration of these texts, because I'm curious how you can demonstrate that just by saying, oh, these books reference each other. That doesn't mean that God inspired them to me.
Well, we gotta ask the question, well, if they have similarities, then why not the entire book itself? There are still 7 verses within both of those books that still have a hint of a personal touch to it, which indicates that in order to then spread the truth to believers and those who study this diligently, it's necessary to take account that it was inspiration of the Holy Spirit and not by these people who are actually writing these books.
We haven't even gotten that far yet. I don't even understand. Look, I can write a book, and Jenna can take some ideas from that book and, reference my book and incorporate it into hers. How does that lead to the conclusion that it was written by the Holy Spirit? I don't know how you're coming to this. Like, I'm really struggling here to understand how you can convince me of this, because I have no idea what you're trying to demonstrate right now.
Well, just the fact that, I can give you an example of how these two have similarities.
I don't. I already know that they have similarities, Kevin. I know that already. We've discussed this. I want to know, how do you know that these texts were inspired by God or the Holy Spirit?
Because it seems like even if you were to take into account the time of Jesus, the apostles themselves had many times where they even didn't understand what was being taught to them, but that was surprisingly by the design of God as well.
Okay, again, what does this have to do with the text being written by the Holy Spirit? So the apostles may have misunderstood the sayings of Jesus. Okay, so what? I'm trying to get to a conclusion here,
Okay, well, the combination of these, the point I'm trying to make is combine these texts to make a more comprehensive text of 2 Peter and Jude, which denotes that there was a need. There was the design by the Holy Spirit that during our time there was a need to provide more information to believers.
No, Kevin, combining texts does not demonstrate that the Holy Spirit is a thing. I'm sorry. I'm asking you a very specific question, and I'm going to ask you this one more time because I'm really curious as to how you came to this conclusion. But if this conversation keeps up the way it is, I'm going to have to move on, because I've gone over this several times. How did you come to the conclusion that the Holy Spirit divinely inspired these texts? What led you to that point? Give me a step-by-step process here.
Okay, well, the Bible is diverse in characteristics just as it is in origin. And the authors of both 2 Peter and Jude are different authors. So the fact that there are any similarities at all are surprising, but
it's not surprising. It's not surprising at all, Kevin.
It's useful.
Why was that surprising?
Things out for itself.
No. Why is it, Kevin? Why is it surprising that Christians in the Christian community are taking works from each other and using it to inspire their own written works? Why is that surprising?
Well, because it's written around the same time, and both, whether or not you believe Peter is the author of 2 Peter and Jude is the author of Jude, they, of course, written their books at different times, different locations, and so it shouldn't have that many similarities at all.
I don't know. I disagree. Like, it's the writers of the New Testament, right? Like, a lot of them weren't going in blind with some of these texts. It's not like that the texts that we have today are the only things written about Christianity during that time. It's just what we have that's left from that time. As you mentioned, there's other New Testament apocrypha that we don't even have the text of. We just know the titles of. And people were searching and looking at this. And obviously, you've already told me that Jude is taking from other apocrypha. So we know that the author is reading these texts. If your conclusion is that it's a coincidence or that he came up with this on its own without reading the texts, then I would say you have no evidence of that. If anything, we have evidence that they did look at these texts and just copied it. And copying a text is not evidence of divine inspiration.
I hear everything that you're saying, but we also have to take into account that, like I said earlier in this call, the church really is going to serve as a hindrance to the truth, because we've always had these church leaders who for carnal reasoning, for self-benefit,
Kevin,
organize the canon.
I gotta stop. You're right. The church does hindrance the truth, but maybe we would disagree on how exactly that's done. I enjoy the conversation we had so far. If we had more time, I'd love to explore it. But next time, I really would like just a point-by-point discussion on the Holy Spirit, how it, inspired the text, and how we can demonstrate that to be true. Because that's what I was interested in this conversation. And the fact that the church decides the canon, and this other stuff about changing the truth, I mean, that only gives evidence to me. I think that these are humanly inspired texts, not necessarily divinely inspired. But next time, Kevin, maybe we can get to it. But we got to move on because we got to wrap it up with one more call here, because I said I was going to take it, and we'll be really, really quick. And then we're going to go to Discord.